As the Californian sun dipped slowly behind the distant mountains, it painted the vast sky with the warmest colors from an artist's palette. Fiery orange, soft pink, lavender, deepening into indigo. Keanu Reeves, aboard his classic Norton Commando, flowed through this symphony of color. The asphalt ribbon of the highway stretched seemingly endlessly before him, winding through rolling hills. He listened to the familiar growl of the engine, felt the vibration beneath him, the wind whispering past his leather jacket. Familiar comforts on these solitary journeys. Escaping Los Angeles always felt like shedding a skin. The chaos of the film set, the artificial glare of studio lights, the relentless flash of paparazzi cameras, the endless interviews. It all faded back there. Here on the open road, anonymity was his cloak. These trips rarely had a fixed destination. The purpose wasn't arrival, but the journey itself, a chance to clear his head, to reconnect with something simpler, more tangible. His mind wandered. He thought about the character he just finished playing, its darkness still lingering at the edges of his thoughts. He thought about friends lost along the way, the unexpected turns life takes, the strange isolation that fame could sometimes bring even when surrounded by people. Maybe that's why he sought these escapes, to feel the simple truth of existence, just a man, a machine, and the road ahead. The sky had now deepened to an inky blue-black, the first stars beginning to pierce the velvet canvas. The air grew noticeably cooler, carrying the scent of distant rain. Keanu checked his fuel gauge, lower than he'd like. He knew the next reliable service station was still a good hour away. He was truly alone out here. The only sign of life, the occasional pair of headlights flashing past in the opposite lane. It was in this profound quiet, under the vast starlit sky, that he saw it, the faint, erratic blinking of hazard lights far ahead, on the shoulder of the road. He instinctively slowed down. An older model, large American station wagon, sitting dangerously close to the driving lane. Its hood was up, and next to it stood a lone figure, barely visible in the deepening twilight. The figure seemed to slam the hood shut in frustration, then leaned against the car, head tilted back as if looking at the uncaring stars. Keanu felt that familiar internal debate. Stop? Keep going? It could be anything. Dangerous, a setup, none of his business. But then, another thought surfaced. The memory of an old farmer who'd helped him years ago when his own car died on a similarly deserted road. Simple kindness, freely given. His conscience wouldn't let him just ride past. He pulled his motorcycle onto the shoulder well behind the stranded car, dimming his headlight. He switched off the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the sound of the wind. He took off his helmet, ran a hand through his long, graying hair, then pulled on a simple black beanie. He approached the car cautiously, slowly, hands clearly visible. The woman heard his footsteps on the gravel and turned sharply, fear flashing in her eyes as his tall figure emerged from the gloom. "Good evening," Keanu said, keeping his voice low and calm, trying not to startle her further. "Looks like you have some trouble. Do you need any help?" The woman, Elena, appeared to be in her early 30s, but her face was etched with worry and exhaustion that made her seem older. She clutched her phone tightly, instinctively backing closer to the car door. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Just someone passing by," Keanu replied, holding his hands up slightly in a non-threatening gesture. "Saw your lights. Thought you might need assistance." He nodded toward the car. "What happened?" Elena hesitated, scrutinizing his face in the dim light. He didn't look overtly threatening. His voice was gentle, his posture relaxed. But years of navigating the world alone with children had made her wary. It just died," she said, her voice strained. "Made some strange noises, then nothing. And I think the front tire is flat too." She pointed a shaky finger towards the front passenger side wheel, which was indeed visibly deflated. "And my phone has no signal out here." Her voice cracked with frustration and near despair. Keanu pulled out his own phone. "Mine neither," he confirmed. "Signal's terrible in this stretch. Don't worry about the tire, though. I might be able to help with that." "Do you have a spare?" Elena nodded numbly. "I think so. In the back." Just then, the back window rolled down slightly, and a small face peered out. A boy, maybe 8 years old. Leo. "Mom, are we stuck? I'm scared." Then another smaller face appeared beside him. A little girl, Mia, maybe 5, clutching a worn teddy bear, Cotton, her eyes wide with apprehension in the car's dim interior light. Seeing the children instantly shifted something in Keanu. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a vulnerable family stranded in the middle of nowhere as night fell. "Hey kids," he said softly toward the window. "Don't worry, we'll figure this out." He turned back to Elena, his resolve hardening. "Let's check that spare. You stay warm, maybe keep the kids calm. I have tools on my bike." Keanu walked back to his Norton, retrieving his compact but comprehensive toolkit. Elena opened the station wagon's tailgate. The spare tire was there, looking old but inflated, but the space where the jack and lug wrench should have been was empty. Elena groaned. "Oh no, my ex-husband. He must have taken them out. I never even checked." Keanu patted her arm reassuringly. "It's okay. I have them." He set to work under the faint glow of his phone's flashlight and Elena holding hers. The air was cool now, the smell of impending rain mixing with the scent of dry grass and engine oil. Finding the jacking point on the old car took a moment. As he began to raise the car, Leo got out again, curiosity overcoming his fear. "Is that hard work?" he asked, watching Keanu turn the crank. Keanu grunted with effort. "A little bit, but worth it to get you back on the road." The lug nuts were rusted and seized tight. Keanu put all his weight onto the wrench, straining in the awkward position. Elena watched anxiously. "Are you sure?" "Maybe we should just wait. Someone else might stop." Keanu shook his head, determined. "Could be hours, and looks like that rain is coming soon." He repositioned the wrench, found better leverage, and pushed hard. A loud creak, then the nut finally turned. "Got it," he exhaled. He worked methodically, loosening the remaining nuts. Leo stayed beside him, peppering him with questions. "Is your motorbike fast? Have you ridden it across the desert? What movies were you in?" Keanu answered patiently, simply, without giving away too much, focusing mostly on the bike and travels. "Yeah, it's pretty fast," he'd say, or, "I like riding through quiet places." Mia had also crept out of the car, holding her mother's hand now, watching Keanu with wide, silent eyes. Removing the flat tire was another struggle. It was heavy and awkward. Keanu finally wrestled it free. As he rolled the spare into place, Mia shyly approached, holding up her bunny. "Cotton is cold," she whispered. Keanu paused, wiped his greasy hands on his jeans, and gently took the bunny. He tucked it briefly inside his leather jacket. "There, is that warmer, Cotton?" Mia giggled, a small, bright sound in the quiet night. Keanu smiled back, a genuine warmth spreading through him. He secured the spare tire, carefully tightening the lug nuts in the correct star pattern. "Okay, almost done," he told Leo. "Important to tighten them evenly, you know? So the wheel stays balanced." Leo nodded seriously. Keanu lowered the car, gave the nuts a final check. "There, should hold you until the next town." He then noticed the other tires looked low. "Let's check the pressure on the others too." He got his portable compressor. As it hummed, filling the tires, he spoke more with Elena. "Tough trip," Elena sighed. "Trying to start over," she admitted quietly. "Lost my husband last year. Job didn't work out. Family's up north. Trying to get to my cousin's place. Maybe find work there. Better schools for the kids." Her voice trailed off, heavy with uncertainty but also a thread of determination. Keanu listened, not offering platitudes, just acknowledging her struggle with a quiet nod. He knew something about loss, about starting over, about the weight of responsibility. Everything was finally ready. The spare was on, the other tires inflated. The first drops of rain began to fall again, heavier this time. Stars were completely obscured now. "The next town with a proper tire shop is about 30, maybe 40 miles, Keanu said, wiping his hands. "But driving on a spare, especially in this rain at night, and the kids are exhausted." He looked at Elena's tired face. "I know a place," he said suddenly, "about 10 miles up the road, a 24-hour diner, clean, safe. Truckers use it, families too. They have a small motel attached. Why don't I follow you there? You can get a warm meal, kids can sleep properly, and you can deal with the tires safely in the morning. Elena looked overwhelmed by his continued kindness. Keanu, I can't ask you to do that. You've already done so much. It's no trouble, he insisted gently but firmly. I was heading north anyway, and honestly, I could use a coffee that didn't come from a gas station machine. His easy manner finally convinced her. Okay, she whispered, relief flooding her face. Thank you. They drove slowly through the increasing rain, Keanu's headlight beam cutting through the darkness behind Elena's station wagon. They reached the brightly lit diner, a welcoming beacon in the night. Inside, the smell of coffee, frying bacon, and warm pie filled the air. It was cozy, unpretentious. They found a large booth in the corner. Keanu insisted on ordering for everyone. Hot chocolate and pancakes for the kids, hearty sandwiches and large coffees for the adults. As the kids ate, their earlier fear replaced by sleepy contentment, Keanu and Elena talked. Really talked. Elena, perhaps feeling safe and heard for the first time in a long time, shared more about her husband, a construction worker, kind, hardworking, killed suddenly in an accident. She spoke of the financial spiral afterwards, the loss of their home, the difficulty finding stable work while raising two young children alone, the painful decision to leave everything familiar behind for an uncertain future hundreds of miles away. She spoke of her fears for Leo and Mia, wanting them to have opportunities she never had. Keanu listened intently, his quiet presence encouraging her to speak. He didn't offer easy answers or false reassurances. He spoke briefly, vaguely, about the unpredictable nature of life, about how resilience often comes from facing hardship, about the importance of holding on to hope for the future, especially for children. He spoke about how sometimes starting over, even when forced upon you, can lead to unexpected positive paths. He didn't talk about his fame or his own specific losses, but his words carried a weight of lived experience that Elena sensed and found comforting. They discovered shared tastes in old music, talked about books. For a couple of hours, they were just two people connecting over coffee in a roadside diner, sharing burdens and quiet hopes. The kids eventually fell fast asleep in the booth. The friendly diner owner helped Elena secure one of the last motel rooms attached. Keanu insisted on paying for the room and the meal, overriding Elena's protest with a quiet firmness. Please, he said simply, let me do this. Think of it as road karma. They carefully carried the sleeping children to the clean, basic motel room. As Elena tucked them in, Keanu stood by the door. It was time for him to leave. Outside the motel room, under the buzzing neon sign of the diner, they said goodbye. Dawn was breaking, painting the eastern sky with faint streaks of pink and gray. The rain had stopped. Elena reached out and squeezed Keanu's hand. I don't know how to thank you, Keanu. You were an answer to a prayer I didn't even know how to make. Keanu smiled, that rare, genuine smile that lit up his face. You're stronger than you think, Elena. You'll be okay, he said. Just keep moving forward. Leo and Mia, roused briefly, waved sleepily from the doorway. Keanu waved back. He walked back to his motorcycle. As he put on his helmet, he saw Elena watching him from the motel room door, a look of profound gratitude on her face. He gave a final nod and started the engine. The sound roared, then settled into a steady rhythm as he pulled back onto the highway, heading north into the emerging daylight. Riding through the cool morning air, the events of the night replayed in his mind. The desolate road, the stranded family, Elena's quiet desperation, the children's vulnerability, the simple act of changing a tire, the shared warmth of the diner. It felt surreal, yet intensely real. How easily he could have just ridden past. How easily people become invisible in their struggles. He thought about the immense privilege of his own life, the security, the resources, the ability to travel these roads without fear. And he thought about Elena, facing an uncertain future with courage and love for her children. What was the point of success, he mused, if it disconnected you from basic human empathy? What was the meaning of strength if not used to help someone vulnerable? He didn't know what would happen to Elena and her children, but he hoped they would find the better life they were seeking. He knew he wouldn't forget them. This chance encounter, this simple act of stopping felt more significant, more grounding than any red carpet event or blockbuster opening. It was a reminder of the shared humanity that existed beneath the surface of everyday life, waiting to be acknowledged. As the sun fully rose, bathing the landscape in golden light, Keanu felt a sense of quiet clarity, a reaffirmation of the simple values he held dear. The road ahead still stretched long, but his journey felt lighter, somehow more meaningful. This story reminds us that even in the most unexpected moments, we can be a source of hope for someone else. Have you had an unexpected encounter on the road that stayed with you? Or when did you offer a helping hand to a stranger in need? Let's share these powerful moments of humanity and kindness in the comments.